We had a interview with Valentino Rossi's engineer, Jeremy Burgess at Laguna, and one of the things that he brought up was that maybe MotoGP shouldn't go up to 1,000 cc, but instead go down to 600 cc.
I tried that idea on Kenny here just a few minutes ago, and he said, "Well, I don't really think people will go for those little bikes." But of course, Jeremy Burgess has been very interested in how riders get into GP racing in the first place and how they get from one rung of the ladder to the next to get into MotoGP. And at first, 500 GP riders were a lot of graduates of National Superbike Series. They were accustomed to riding 1,000 cc high torque monsters that they could skid around corners. And there's nothing that's going to prepare you for that now. I remember that Kenny Roberts used to complain that 750 Superbike, which took over in '83, he said those things don't have any power, they're just revvers. He said they're never going to learn how to ride a 500 on those little things. So I think we're stuck with 1,000. And Jeremy's plan for 600 Moto 2 bike as entry level, and then a souped up 600, and then a prototype 600 makes good sense as far as rungs on a ladder for riders trying to get to the top. But the way things are, riders are just going to have to forget what they knew in the class they're leaving and start fresh in the next class.
Well, that brings up the question of 250 GP led the way to 500, and people like Jorge Lorenzo won two 250 GP championships and then moved straight on to MotoGP and has had, this year's a perfect example of his success. Roger, do you feel that Moto2, now having ridden both of these very close together, that Moto2 could work as a step for MotoGP as we currently know it?
In some ways, I think it could, because you get the four-stroke experience, but at the same time, the power difference between the Moto2 bike and a MotoGP bike is so much difference that I think they have to make the Moto2 bike more like the old Formula Extreme bikes were in the U.S., like many 600 Superbikes, more than 600 production bikes.
Is the corner speed there with a Moto2 bike? Because obviously the 800s MotoGP bikes, corner speed is amazing.
Yeah, the corner speed is actually really fast on the Moto2 bikes just because they handle so good and they're so light, and you can just do whatever you want with it, because as soon as you really get on the gas, they're really, you're trying to get your speed up going for the straightaway.
So you like riding it?
Yeah, it's fun to ride for sure, because it's so little and it just, it does everything you want. And especially when we go testing, it's, when it comes to 5 o'clock, it's always like, can we get a little bit more time and just go out there and do laps?
No. Kevin, based on what you've seen, is Moto2 a logical step as it currently, the current formula for MotoGP?
I think Moto2 is a great class for right now, the way things are in the world with the economy. Like Roger said, I think a little bit more horsepower will try and close that gap to what it's like to go from riding a Moto2 bike to a MotoGP bike. But no, I think in its current form, I think Moto2 is great.
Okay. I wanted to get your view. You know Valentino Rossi really well, and I wanted to get your view of his switch to Ducati for next year.
Well, I guess Valentino's proven to us in the past that he's willing to take a step that most people wouldn't be willing to take. To go ride a bike that Roger's brother Nicky and Casey seem to be struggling on right now, and Yamaha continuing to make the advancements that's continuing to keep them right at or in the front of MotoGP. It's a brave step, but at the same time, I think Valentino and his character, the team that he has assembled around him, carry a whole lot of motivation into a manufacturer when they do switch teams. So just like he did when he went to Yamaha. I think that same is going to go true when he gets to Ducati. I think the problem they might run into first and foremost is how limited testing schedules are now, and when you can go test, and where you can go test, and what you're allowed to go test. So, it's going to be a steep hill to climb, but I think if there's anybody that can do it, Valentino and Jerry and all the guys that he's assembled will make it look easier than most.
Kevin, one of the keys to Valentino's success, I think, has been his relationship at Yamaha with Mr. Furusawa. Can he have that same relationship, do you think, with Pedercini?
That's a good question right there. The thing that was important about the relationship with Mr. Furusawa is that corporations tend to be timid. It's safer if you're thinking about employment continuity and the steady growth of your income to make only small changes. But sometimes, as with the Yamaha in 2003, big changes are necessary. So Yamaha chose Mr. Furusawa as their designated risk taker. If he makes a success of this, as he did of snowmobile suspension, where he threw out everything that Yamaha was building and started over again with other ideas, if he can do that with our Moto GP bike, then well and good. And if he fails, we'll take care of that too. And we'll have someone to blame. So Mr. Furusawa came through in spades on all counts. He managed to get Yamaha to put 4 valves in their engine when they had that 5-valve signature. It's sort of like Ducati with metal springs, No, that can't happen. So the relationship with Furusawa was very important. You would hope that an all-Italian team would have a natural cohesion. But I don't think that's guaranteed, because some people who have worked closely with Ducati say that Ducati engineers live in their books. So it'll be exciting to see what actually does come of it. Will they fluidly move to a solution that's new and effective, or will they spend a lot of money trying to drive nails with their foreheads? We have to wait and see.
Obviously, the Valentino's move to Ducati has had a domino effect. And, Kevin, you've obviously been very close with Ben Spies for many years. There hasn't been an official announcement of his taking Valentino's spot on the factory squad. But if that were to happen, do you think he's at the point where he can go out and win races on that bike next year?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, Matt. I heard somebody ask Ben that at the press conference, I think, post-race last weekend. The question was posed to him a bit differently. If he was the same size as Pedrosa, would he have been on pole? And Ben laughed and said, no, if I'd have gotten in his way, I'd have been on pole. It's hard to say. Is a factory bike 2/10, 5/10? I don't think you can really put a number to it. It's a feeling thing, and it might be worth more than that. It might be worth less than that. But at least you'll be on equal to what the other fast guys are out there on. And I think Ben's capable of racing those guys. It's not going to be an immediate step, but like it is for almost all these guys in Grand Prix racing, whether it's Moto 2, whether it's 125, or it's all the way up in the premier class of Moto GP. It's a work in progress, and at this level, it's really, really difficult to make up even those 1/10 or 2/10 of a second, much less a half. So he's got a big step ahead of him, and I wish him all the best.
Has his progress this year been what you expected to see from him?
Yeah, I think so. The beginning of the season, the first half of the season, I think there was either 2 or 3 tracks that he'd seen. The second half of the season plays a little more into his favor, and I think there's 6 or 8 tracks that he's been to of the 9 that are in the second half of the season. So it'll be interesting to see. I think He put in a great effort in Checo last weekend, qualified second, and then ran up front for quite some time. You know, he's closing that gap to where those lead guys are, and that's really all you can ask.